Welcome to the gun cleaning seminar of the 2023 Canadian Shooting Sports AGM. My name is Bernardo. Some of you guys know me, some of you guys I've just met, and some I'll probably meet today. I am an employee at Stoeger, Canada in Oshawa. I've been running the service department for probably about the last 5 years, slowly switching into IT. However, still dabble in it once in a while. Anybody who doesn't know Stoeger Canada, we are the distributor and Canadian warranty center for Breda, Benelli, Seiko, Tika, Holland & Holland, Chapuis, Uberti, and Burris & Steiner. So we have a very wide range of brands. We deal with a lot of different kind of guns. And because we deal with all of Canada, we go all the way from the East Coast to the West Coast. So there's a lot of different variations of cleaning your gun, maintaining your gun, a lot of issues that could happen coast to coast that are going to be different depending where you're going to be hunting. So the purpose of this is just to go through a couple different ways to maintain your gun, little tips and tricks that we've encountered within Stoeger with our guns at least, and kind of explore them and give you guys some advice if you need it. So I'm going to go through the four most important thing about cleaning your gun. And everybody knows this, and you can't say it enough. Safety first. Whenever you're attempting to clean your gun, you want to attempt it unloaded. And we all go back to axe improves. Assume every gun is loaded, control your muzzle at all directions, your trigger finger off the trigger, and you see that your firearm is unloaded. You want to point the firearm in a safe direction, remove all your ammunition, observe the chamber, verify the feed path, and examine the bore. Once you do all that, your gun's ready to clean. A working environment. A working environment for cleaning your gun. You want ample bright light. You want to see the crud. I mean, you don't really want to see the crud, but you do want to see the crud in this case. You want to prepare a table or a bench. You want to read and follow the directions in the owner's manual. Most guns will have an owner's manual. You'll notice nowadays, because of the digital world, a lot of guns aren't actually coming with owner's manuals anymore. They'll tell you to go online. I know from my experience, you can find almost any owner's manual online. Within that owner's manual, it will give you the tips to disassemble your gun, how to field strip it, and how to properly clean it, and when to stop, which isn't everybody's forte, but you end up with a gunsmith at that point. So you want a bath towel, preferably a light color. You know, if you're working with actually cleaning your gun, you want to see if there's any dirt left on your gun. And at this moment, I have a black one, but I'd recommend something light colored if you're going to be cleaning it. You're also going to want some cleaning tools. So you can pick up any kind of kit at any of the gun shops. They sell them. This particular one has the copper bore brushes. It's got little pads that you can go through, and this probably cost me all of about $10. So, you know, they're very convenient. They usually got all the calibers in there for you. I've been able to use this with every gun I've owned, and I've had it for probably a good 7-8 years now. So, another couple things that you want some gun treatment. I prefer the G96. The G96, we actually use cases of this at work. We use it for every gun that we have. It is a complete treatment. It cleans, lubricates, it protects, it smells good, which anybody who has used the hops oil knows. But this stuff smells like cinnamon, so even your wives might help you. Girls. Okay, I'll agree. Yeah. Anyways, it goes down to minus 62 as well. It's a great lubricant, all around treatment for your gun. You have a couple of other options. There's Gunzilla. They do bore cleaners. They do lubrications as well. So, you know, your local gun shop will have many different options on oils, lubrications, and Crud Buster. Crud Buster is another one that will break everything up. Again, your local gun shop has many options for this. Another thing I would recommend is a bore snake. Now, I don't know if you guys have ever used a bore snake. They're very convenient. They're great on the field. Just to put a bore snake through it quick after you've been shooting. You can see whatever's inside your gun. It's great just to put some lubricant oil and lubricate your barrel and your bore at that point. So everyone should own one for every caliber that you guys have. All right, so I'm going to go through just a couple different actions with you guys to give you some tips on whatnot. I don't have all the actions with me, specifically handguns. I'm not going to be bringing those, and some black powders. They're just too dirty to kind of carry around. But I'm going to start with black powder and muzzle loading guns. Always have an old muzzle loading firearm inspected by your gunsmith. If you just picked one up, it's always a good idea. Because of the black powder they use, you definitely want that inspected that it's okay to use. Cleaning them, hot, soapy, cold water. Hot water, warm water, it doesn't matter, it's soapy. Or a black powder solvent as well is probably going to be your best option to clean those guns. You can, soak them in there and then get all off the crud that way. Rinse with plenty of clean water. You want to just keep rinsing it and making sure that all that soap is actually off your gun. You're going to wipe it with a dry towel. You can use a little bit of alcohol solution to dry out some of the water in it if it's stuck in little crevices. You want to make sure everything's dry, because if it's not, you're going to get rust on your gun. So you want to very thoroughly dry off your gun. For your stock, same thing, some soapy water and making sure that it's dry. Especially if you got something with wood, you don't want any of the moisture inside the wood to stay in there or the soap to stay in there. So making sure that is thoroughly dry off at that point. Yes?
Do you ever use a hair dryer?
Yeah, you know what? I have, actually, especially when you're just in something like a trigger mechanism, where you don't really want to take something apart. I mean, you can get into some nitty gritty in the trigger mechanism, some safety issues. So yeah, I do use air pressure, and as well as a hair dryer as well. Yeah, it's a good idea. Yeah. Before you reassemble, you're going to want to give it a nice oil. If you're storing it away, you're going to oil it roughly about 3 times. Oil it, let it dry. Oil it, let it dry. Oil it, let it dry. And that will ensure optimal storage at the end. Shotguns. So there's a couple different shotguns that I'm going to talk about. We got over-under shotguns. For those who've never seen one, which I'm sure all you have. We got pump action shotguns, which I don't have here, and we got semi-automatic shotguns. When you start getting into the semi-autos, we got gas-powered and inertia-driven. So cleaning these type of guns, they're pretty simple. I'm going to start with the over-under. The over-under, there isn't really too much that you're going to get into. You're going to want to clean your bore. You're going to want to give it all a wipe down. You want to take off your forend. You want to clean underneath your forend in case any moisture's gotten under it, especially if you're shooting in a rainy day or a humid day as well. When you clean your bore, you just put some solvent on it. You can use one of the bore snakes. It's probably the easiest to clean this out. And you can put your bore snake through it, and you're going to oil it when you're done. One thing about the over-under is you can clearly look down your barrel, you can see how much crud is in it. So if you really need to grab a brush and get it out, then do a brush and then put your bore snake down it. When it comes to inside the actual mechanism, I wouldn't recommend taking that apart. It doesn't really need to be cleaned too often. I mean, you can clean it every couple years depending on how much you use your gun. There's a lot of mechanisms inside that you can mess up on that. Your safety mechanisms in there, your sears inside of it. It's recommended to go to a gunsmith if you need something like that cleaned out. I have seen a lot of times where people will spray inside of it, something like a WD-40, which will dissipate, and just run some air pressure down there, and that will clean it out. But it's always recommended to go to your gunsmith if you're going to clean out the internals of your over-under. So next one I have is a inertia-driven. So an inertia-driven gun, the whole action is based on springs. When your whole action is based on springs and the whole energy of the gun, all the springs ride rails. So the cleaner you can have your gun, the more oiled you can have your gun, the better it's going to work. On, Thursday, I actually cleaned a gun that was not cycling. That's your biggest problem with those guns, is not cycling. When I opened up the gun, it was caked, completely caked. The only thing we had to do was clean the gun, we took it down, and it shoots fine. So it kind of goes to show one of your major issues is always going to be your gun being cleaned. So always making sure you're cleaning them will show your optimal use. So in those instances, you can take apart your bolts, you can take apart your springs, you give them a nice wipe down, get all the crud out of them, use something like Crud Buster. You can use something with air pressure to get it out of your trigger mechanism, and give it a good oil and spray down. Yes? Brake cleaner works, really. Brake cleaner works. It breaks it down. It breaks down a lot of the crud, right? It's cheap. A lot of people have it. I mean, I personally don't even have brake cleaner at home, so not everybody does have it, right? But it is something that you can use. Same with lubrication. I mean, the motor oil, the 5W oil, is the same. I mean, if you need some light grease, just a small amount of that is great all over your rails, and it works well. So on your inertia guns, again, you want to clean the springs out, you want to clean inside your bolts, and you want to give the rails a really good oil. Those rails will ensure that your springs are working, and they have plenty of lubrication to work back and forth. So the next gun I'm going to go through is the gas-powered. The gas-powered guns, they get dirty. And every gas-powered gun has a piston in it. You always find a piston. And in this piston, just like a car, you're going to have this ring that goes around. And when that ring gets stuck, your gun doesn't cycle. So I'd recommend every time you guys are done from the range that you clean out this piston. And keeping it clean will ensure that your gun's always going to be firing. Okay? As soon as this gets crud on it and it gets too much, the gases aren't able to escape. The ring doesn't spin on it, and you're going to have cycling issues at that point, typically with light loads. Now, it being gas-powered, your internals are also going to get lots of foul build up on it as well. So again, I always recommend when you come home from the range, take it apart. You don't have to do a full clean. You could just do a nice field strip and making sure you're wiping all the fouling off and putting a nice light coat of lubrication on it. Rifles. So there's bolt action, lever action, pump action, and brake action. Bolt action, we all know, is going to be the easiest for you to clean. So taking your bolt out of it, you're able to actually put any kind of like a cleaning rod of some sort or a bore snake right down the bore, always starting from your chamber all the way up. If anybody needs to start from the muzzle down, they actually sell a guide, right? So they sell a guide that goes right there at the tip, your muzzle, and it will guide your cleaning rod all the way down. Because within these guns, they've got the rifling in them. You don't want to screw up your crown as well, right? That's one place that you really want to protect in your rifle. So using a cleaning rod going this way, you can really mess up your crown. So. And now your bolts. Bolts are actually easy to take apart for the most part. Not all guns are. Some guns are. Taking your shroud off and accessing your firing pin spring. You will get foul buildup on your firing pin spring. You'll end up with light strikes. So if you got too much and you're having light strikes in any of your bolt action guns, take a look at your firing pin spring. Get some lubrication on it, clean it out, clean out the fouling, put it back together, and try your gun again. If you're hunting in the field, it's always good to double check the bolts. If you get any kind of debris in it and it gets stuck within that firing pin spring and keeps it pushed open, you go to load your gun and your firing pin is actually cocked because something's inside of it preventing it, and you can have an accident waiting to happen. Right? So always checking that. One thing about these bolt action guns as well, actually I'm going to be honest, all guns, is you're always going to want to check the screws. Before you take it out to the range for the season, go check your screws. You want to tighten everything up. Something like a trigger screw, because of traveling, if it's something like that's come loose, now you can have a really hair-like trigger and have an accident waiting to happen. Your over-unders, if you're not checking the stock screw, I don't know if anybody's ever had a broken stock on an over and under. It actually happens quite frequently, and that's because of the stock screw in the back of the stock has come loose. You go to shoot it, it's got that little bit of give to it, and it just cracks the stock right below your tang. So it's always a good idea, the beginning of the season, thoroughly look through your gun, tighten up anything on it, even halfway through your season, do the same thing. It'll show your optimal performance and that no parts are going to be broken on it. Lever actions, pump actions, brake actions on a rifle. Some of those rifles are not easy to take apart and clean. I know for myself, I have some rifles that are some lever action rifles. They are not easy to clean. If your manual says do not go down into the bowels of the gun, don't try it at home. We've literally had guns come into us in 30, 40 different pieces because somebody's attempted to take it apart and can't figure out how to put them back together, right? So you don't want to do that. Stuff gets easily lost in the mail. It's happened. Comes holes in the packaging. Take it to the gunsmith. There's a lot of safety things going on in your trigger assembly. You really don't want to be messing with those if you're out on the range. So if your owner's manual says take it to a gunsmith, then I'd recommend taking it to a gunsmith. For all rifles too, you're going to want to pay attention to the copper or the lead buildup within the grooves. One of the ways of breaking your rifle in is to actually have a bullet go and you gain that little tiny bit of buildup in your gun, and that'll help break it in. But when it gets to be too much, it won't improve your accuracy, that's for sure. So if you do have some accuracy problems of a gun that has shot well before, take a look at your barrel. Take a look at the copper fouling within it, give it a good clean out. Try not to use anything too abrasive on it, but they all have brushes. A lot of these kits have nice copper brushes in them, and you can use that to get that out. And again, you always finish off with a nice light coat of oil. Do it at the start of your season, do it in the middle of your season, do it at the end of your season. One thing I'm going to say about rifles is hunting. A lot of us hunt with our rifles. Rust. Rust is the #1 culprit. Most of us are going to be deer hunting, and it's going to be cold, it's going to be snowing, it's going to be raining. It does not take long for rust to build up on your gun. I've had a nice rainy day, and by the time I've gotten back inside, I got rust building up on a gun. All right? You won't find many places that are going to cover that under warranty. It's a lot of your responsibility to take care of the rust. I'd recommend every time you come in from hunting, give your gun a wipe down. Something like a bolt action, take your stock off. Take your stock off and look underneath your stock and get the moisture out of that. Always give it a wipe down. Storing it in your case, make sure your case is dry. That's going to be your worst culprit. You get home from hunting, you throw the case, oh, it's in the case, but the case was damp. Now you got to take out your gun and it's covered in rust. You leave that rust too long, it's going to pit. Once it starts pitting and it starts eating at your metal, well, there's not much you can do from there. If you do see a little bit of rust on it, any kind of surface rust, if you can't get it off with a cloth, you can take a little chunk of Scotch-Brite. You can get that at the dollar store, you can get it at Walmart, and you can just rub it gently with that, and most of the time the surface rust will come off. It's really easy. Just don't let it pit. Handguns. Handguns, single action, double action, semi-autos. You want to clean your bore, you want to clean your chambers of your receiver. You don't really want to take too much apart. Your semi-automatics, you want to take your barrel off, you want to take your slide off, you want to take off the guide rod. You can clean all those parts. You want to give a wipe down on the inside of where your trigger assembly is. If you see too much crud down there, grab a Q-tip. It's one of the greatest things just to get in a little bit of grooves. Again, I'd recommend though, not taking your whole trigger assembly apart. Again, if you want to go take that apart, go to a gunsmith, have them clean it out. You want to pay attention to the upper creases of receivers, forcing cones. You want to, above the firing pin for any kind of excess buildup or any kind of lead buildup or any carbon fouling in there. Long-term storage. Great old Canada, we'll mostly store our guns throughout the winter because it kind of sucks hunting in the cold. Ensure your gun is clean, it's dry, there's no moisture on it. Apply a nice light coating to all your metal parts. Again, something like the G96 or something like your Hobbs number 9. Apply 3 coats on it. So apply it, let it dry, apply it, let it dry, apply it, and let it dry. Then you can store it. Checking periodically to see if there's any rust on them throughout the winter is always going to be a good idea. Then you're not going to wait until it pits. If there's any bit of surface rust, you can get it off. Another tip is dehumidifiers. You can actually get little tiny dehumidifiers that you can put in your gun cases. You can put in your case or you can put in your safe. You can, so I've seen them at hunting stores. You can also get them at music stores as well. So there's a few different places that you can get them. Even the dry beads that come in a lot of the packaging on stuff, putting those within your gun safe or your gun case just to soak up any kind of excess moisture. The benefits of the maintenance and the care is your safety, number one. Your number one priority is always going to be your safety. Don't shoot a really dirty gun. It's just not good. You never know what's in your barrel. You never know what's in your bore. And if there's too much going on in there, you can have easily a barrel bulge. You can have gases come back on you. You really want to maintain your gun for safety purposes. Another advantage is it always performs well. Another advantage is it maintains its value. So you try to sell someone a gun that you haven't cleaned in 25 years, good luck. Couple notes of caution: not attempting to cycle live ammunition at home. Use dummy rounds or snap cap. Believe it or not, I've actually had videos sent to me of people dry cycling live rounds in their kitchen and saying, look, my gun doesn't work. Yeah, I go, okay. I think there's more to the story on that one, but not for me to say. Always use axe and proofs when you store your gun, especially if you're coming from hunting. You never know. You always want to check your gun to see if there's any live rounds in there before you store it. If your firearm's been stored for a long period of time, and before you load your gun, before you fire your gun, you want to give it a clean, you want to give it an oil. And you're periodically going to check any of the tightness of the screws, making sure everything is tight. All right, that is all I got. Does anybody have any questions for me? Yes?
What's you recommend for bore sight cameras? Because I've tried two, and they don't show you much. They're just fuzzy. Do you have any recommendations on any of those?
Yeah, I've used a couple of them, and I found the same thing. I mean, technology is getting a little better, so I think in the last couple years, it's gotten a lot better. They're still fuzzy, though. So we still send them down sometimes, and we'll see anything down there. They're still not there. So what you can use, and I've heard a lot of guys say this, is the cameras that go for the engines. So instead of looking at gun cameras and bore cameras, look at the ones that they're making for engines. So.
I've got another question. You touched on long-term storage. What about really long-term storage?
Why would you want to do that, Richard?
No, I have no reason to do that. Not at all.
He's talking about burying them underground so Trudeau doesn't get any more. I get it. So you want to go 6 feet down, right?
Actually, what works good for that, if you're going to put guns into sort of hiding them, use fluid film from Canadian Tire. The stuff goes on like Cosmoline, sticks to it thick, and it doesn't go on like WD-40. Put that, put it in a bag with a dry pack, and then stash it. Because I run into people all the time pulling out guns that they tried to conceal, and then by the time they bring it to me, they're covered in rust.
Oh, yeah, no,
they think because it's in a case or something like that it's going to be protected.
Yeah.
I have to remind them that there's no moisture gets in everything unless you have some sort of pack in there.
Yeah.
And there's vacuum seal too.
Yep, and you can get the dry beads. You can heat reactivate them if you have a
Yes. Rice, same thing. Yeah, I mean, you get minute rice and you're going to have the same thing. You could dehydrate the minute rice. Really, any of those options that are going to suck up moisture.
Have you heard what is available for firearms that are completely covered in rust that have been just completely decimated in it? I've taken the finishes off with a bead blaster.
Yes.
But if you go and redo it, the guns quite often are not worth anything really other than the family, and so the guns basically, I just blow the finish right off it. But the problem is trying to put a finish on it without having to spend all the money for an expensive Cerakote job or a full gluing is the only other way, but to do it on a budget.
Hydro dipping.
Which one?
Hydro dipping.
Hydro dipping.
Yeah. I mean, that's the only thing you're really going to get on a budget. I'd still recommend Cerakoting it, though, to anybody who's in that situation. We've had people come to us, too, with the same issues. It's that rusted. It's not worth it.
Generally, barn guns is what I end up people pulling out of the middle of nowhere, and they're just
I found this in the corner. yeah, no doubt. Yeah. Camel wrapping it doesn't even have to be camel. Really, you can have a couple different options of wrapping. Would probably be your cheapest bet. Your best bet's going to be Cerakoting it.
Yeah, I just wondered about whether those hops sort of home bluing kits are even worth I haven't even messed with one of them yet to go and do it.
Yeah, we've used cold blue.
To do the whole gun that way. That's the thing.
I wouldn't recommend that. No, the cold blue is good for little spots. If you got a little spot within your bluing that is chipped off or something, the cold blue covers it really well. But I wouldn't do a whole gun with that. I mean, it wouldn't look right. It really wouldn't look right. So, yeah, I think he's been
Actually, I
waiting.
didn't get an answer to my question.
Oh, sorry.
I was wondering about using certain types of greases or something, or hacking up the barrel or the trigger mechanism with certain. Are there any greases that could be used for that kind of preservation?
For long-term storage, like this gentleman was saying, Cosmoline would work. Yeah, Cosmoline, it's a very, very thick grease. A lot of the factories actually use it. I know a lot of our factories use it since we're shipping from Europe, right? I mean, it's a 3-month trip to get down to us overseas. So Cosmoline it's just really, really thick lubrication.
That is what the fluid film stuff goes on like. When you spray the stuff in, it goes on and just sticks and thick on almost like a Vaseline. So it's a good option to use for that. You can blast and all thing. Just try to keep it off your stock if you can.
Yeah, definitely.
Actually, that brings up another quick question, if you don't mind. I have a rifle that has a walnut stock, and it gets fungus on it.
The moisture, that's definitely a moisture issue.
That's what I think, but
Yeah.
I've had these things in there to absorb moisture, and it doesn't affect anybody else in the safe. It's just that one rifle.
There might be moisture getting in certain cracks in it. Maybe giving it a coat of some kind of finish over top of it.
I ended up putting, that
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like moisture's getting within the grain. Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I'm.
yeah.
So has anyone tried vacuum packing?
I mean, that would work. I don't see why that wouldn't work, really.
I mean, moisture.
Yeah, yeah, that would work, definitely. So,
I have another question. Has anyone published verifiable frequency of cleaning for various types of firearms? Because I just hate experimenting on myself constantly, saying, oh, maybe I'll just shoot another 500, maybe it'll be okay, I'm just too lazy. It's like,
I mean, they can come up with a recommendation, but it varies to the individual, right? Like, how much do you shoot and where are you shooting? When you're someone, if you're someone who's shooting out east, you've got salt water out there, you've got salt in your air, you want to clean your rifle all the time.
I mean just for the actual powder, not for the environmental conditions,
Yeah.
but the ammunition, the way it may.
Again, it could depend on your ammunition too, right? If you're using some kind of dirty ammunition or not. If you're using perfectly clean ammunition, depending on how much you're shooting, you're still looking at a couple times, like thoroughly cleaning it a couple times a year if you're using a lot. So it just really varies on the individual.
Well, what they should do is actually show what a cleaning wad would look like after it's been put through a really dirty gun, as opposed to one that doesn't really need cleaning yet.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you can actually tell the difference. Like, oh, I shouldn't have cleaned that one.
Yeah, I have seen them. I've seen both sides of it. Again, I just finished cleaning a gun before I came here that I don't think it's ever been cleaned. And they come out really dirty. They really come out dirty. They're very built up with a lot of crud. But again, it depends how much they're using it, where they're using it, and what ammo they're using.
Yeah,
So,
it's just an issue because you don't
Yeah.
know how frequently you should be cleaning it. You must be doing it more harm than
Yeah.
you would otherwise just to wait.
yeah, giving it a visual inspection too. I mean, visually looking at your gun to see how much has been built up. Something like a shotgun, where you can take it apart and you can see inside your bolts and you can see inside your action and you can see your rails. You can see what the buildup is at that point. If you're looking at like a lever action, I mean, you can really clean those once, like the internals, and bringing that to a gunsmith, depending again on how much you're shooting, a couple times within a decade, right? So.
The problem with me is that I've only ever known my own guns.
Yeah.
So I can't tell what is too dirty.
No, I never knew what it was called.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
you always could have a bit of dirt in it, so
That one there, that one there.
yeah.
at what point am I sure?
At what point? Well, it's all your test. If they stop working, they're too dirty. There really isn't a point. There isn't really a point where I can say you have this much buildup of crud, you should clean your gun, right? So, because it's going to vary with everyone. So, you really do just want to keep it clean if you want optimal performance out of it. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yes. I'd say yes and no. If you're trying to get a little bit of rust off of it, you need something abrasive. I wouldn't go as far as steel wool. Steel wool will screw something up, right?
4-0 steel wool.
Sorry?
4-0?
The 4-0, yes. Yes, we still don't recommend it because we've recommended it in the past and kind of people have come up, well, look, I used it. How much? Right?
For an hour, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, the Scotch-Brite, if you're looking at something like rust, just very lightly. Very lightly because you want something that's abrasive to get that rust off of it, right? That won't screw it up. That won't screw up stainless. That won't screw up your steel. If you put a lot of pressure on it, it will.
Moderately used.
Moderately used. Lightly used.
I don't want to sound elitist, but nowadays, you want to think about maybe brand names. When you mention Scotch-Brite, there's piles of imitations of the originals called right on the market. So do you have any recommendations about that, or are all the same?
They're all going to be the same. It's a sponge, really. You know, it's a hard sponge. They're all going to be the same on that. You know, Scotch-Brite is just, a lot of people know what that is, but yeah, I mean, you can get it at the dollar store. That's not Scotch-Brite. It's the same thing. You can use that, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Did you ever hear of a product called Battlestone?
No.
I've seen it advertised in the States.
Mm.
There's one in the,
Ballast-Stone?
yeah,
Yeah, I've heard of it.
What is that?
Yeah, I've heard of this stuff before, it's such, but it's been
cleaner
around for a long time.
lubricant.
It's like
Yeah.
G96.
It's been around
Yeah.
for quite a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was at SHOT Show.
Oh, was it?
Yeah,
I wasn't on the list
they
too.
gave me 2 sample products. I haven't used them yet. I haven't been brave enough, but,
No.
well, it's new to me, right? It's new to Canada.
Yeah. Yeah.
Down in the
Yeah.
States, they use it all the time.
Yeah.
There's videos on it and YouTube, I guess.
Oh,
you
yeah,
use
it, yeah, cleans the gun, they use it on the stock, the
Then
bore.
they got,
Yeah. I mean, just the gentleman was saying that G96 is the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, for us, we service a lot of guns, really,
Yeah.
we do, right? And we have 2 things that we use on a constant basis. One's Crud Buster, and the other one is G96. And we use it on everything. It cleans, it lubricates, it does everything it needs to do. I mean, if we need something a little stronger, the Crud Buster is definitely great. But for the most part, and this thing takes off most. So,
As
and
far as
it
the
smells
products
good.
that are claimed to be rust removers,
Yeah.
have you had any experience with any of them that you should not use because they might possibly damage, taking off bluing or any of those sort of problems?
No, not necessarily. No. Again, we don't use too many products. I mean, we've seen guys, they got a whole lineup of product, and I got this for this and this for this. There's certain things that really are all around things, you know, and for us, we service thousands of guns a year, thousands. And we've seen them as dirty as can be, rust, cracked, you name it, we've seen it. And 2 products, that's what we use, is 2 products.
Yeah, some guy dropped off a 22 bolt action to me,
Hmm.
all covered in wood glue. The whole stock had broken.
Oh,
He had this thing, it was
wow.
really dripping and dried wood glue all down it and covered in rust.
Oh,
He
wow.
just says you can have it.
Thanks. Nice paperweight.
Piece of junk.
That's funny. Yes.
I think to sum it up is keep it simple, stupid, right? Like.
It is, yeah.
There's a few products that you use that are tried and true.
Yes.
Like-
Yes.
Down at SHOT Show, they brought out, like you said, a whole table full of pre-cleaner, middle cleaner. If the gun's really dirty, use this one and then go back to this one and then polish it with this.
Yeah.
And it's just,
It's overkill.
yeah.
Some of it's overkill.
So,
Keep it
it's just-
simple.
yeah.
You know, you know, when you think about it, you're working with only a couple different things. You're working with steel. You're working with wood. You're working with plastic. Right? Keep it simple. Right? You got aluminum on there. Keep it simple. Right? We all know how to clean that kind of stuff. We don't go to our car with 3 buckets of stuff and go, okay, I'm going to clean the interior of my car. No, you usually use 1 or 2 things, right? One for the plastic and one maybe for the metal itself, right? So, yeah, keep it simple. It's your easiest way. Yes, you had a question back there?
Yeah, for an old piece that may be starting to lose a lot of metal because of rust, have you tried rust converter?
I've never used that, no.
It basically converts the rust to an inert metal, so it stops all future rusting. You
Yeah,
don't have to scrape it off.
yeah.
It just changes the chemical characteristics.
That's interesting.
It's new on the market though, right? And like you said, it changes the chemical makeup of the steel. So is that gonna add fatigue to the steel?
Yeah,
also?
that's what I'd be
It's
worried
not
about.
proven yet, right?
Like, has anybody ever used it?
It's for
No?
automotive
No?
generally, I think, is the
Yeah,
thing.
I wouldn't.
Oh,
do
okay.
that.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, you're depending on where on the gun you're going to be using it. Like, I mean, you have explosions going on in your hand, right? So, like, you really don't want You really don't want metal that is going to be fatigued if that's what it's going to do. I'd wait until it's definitely tried and true before you use it on your gun.
I mean, it's like for a non-moving part, non-mechanical surface, that if you were to remove the rust, you're gonna actually weaken it. So
Yeah.
if you put rust converter on it, you don't remove the metal, it converts into an inert form of steel.
Yeah. I'd still make the recommendation of checking your gun to make sure it doesn't rust. Periodically checking that kind of stuff. It takes weeks for the most part, it'll take weeks for rust to pit, right? Depending on the climate, I guess, at the same time. But double checking your rust. I mean, I've had guns that are completely rusted, and I've cleaned them off with a little bit of Scotch-Brite and some G96, and you couldn't tell. You could not tell that this gun was rusted, right? Because it wasn't pitted yet. Once it starts pitting, you're always going to have something weaken your material, right? And I'd be careful still on that.
Yeah, I mean, if you have pitting on a operating part, that's no longer functional, in my mind.
Depending how bad it is, that could be correct. Depending how bad it
It
is.
could be off spec.
Yeah, depending how bad it is. Yeah, that'd be more up to the owner at that point if they want to use it.
Service.
But yeah. Any other questions? No? Okay, well, happy cleaning. And if anybody ever needs to contact us and has any questions, and definitely let us know. We're available at Stoeger Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, and you're more than welcome to give us a call. All right, have a good day, guys.